There is something you need to hear today, and part of you already senses it. Someone did not simply feel attracted to you. Someone did not only admire you from a distance or enjoy being around you for a short time. Someone actually fell in love with you in a way that surprised even them. It was never planned. It was never under their control. It was not something they expected to happen. What makes this even more meaningful is that it did not happen because of anything obvious. It was not only because of your appearance. It was not because you tried to impress them. It was not because you chased them, begged for attention, or forced a relationship. It happened because of three very specific things about you. Three qualities that reached parts of them they had protected for many years. And the second one is something most people would never imagine. In fact, once you understand it, many confusing moments between you and this person may suddenly begin to make sense. You may have wondered why they looked at you differently sometimes, why their energy changed whenever they were around you, why there were moments when they felt close, almost deeply present, and then suddenly became distant or difficult to understand. That contradiction may have hurt because it made no logical sense. How can someone seem so present one moment and then so unavailable the next? This is where many people misunderstand love. Love does not always create immediate closeness. Sometimes real love does the opposite at first. It brings hidden wounds to the surface. It awakens old fears. It stirs everything a person has spent years trying not to feel. That may be exactly what happened here. When someone truly falls in love with you, especially someone who is emotionally guarded, they do not only feel desire, they feel vulnerable. They feel exposed. They feel the frightening possibility of being seen more clearly than ever before. There is something deep within human psychology about this. The people who affect us the most are often the ones who awaken unconscious parts of ourselves. Not because they are trying to, but because their presence naturally slips past our emotional defenses. When that happens, something inside begins to change. The mask starts to fall away. Emotional control begins to weaken. What they believed they had mastered no longer feels steady. This is where the first reason begins. The first reason they fell in love with you is because you made them feel emotionally safe without trying to control them. That may sound simple, but it is actually very rare. Most people enter relationships carrying hidden pressure. They want reassurance, validation, certainty, and emotional guarantees. Even if they never say those things directly, their energy often communicates them. Stay close, explain yourself, choose me, prove your feelings to me. But your energy felt different. Even if you wanted closeness, something about you never felt controlling. You were present without making them feel trapped. You were warm without demanding anything in return. You gave them space without disappearing. Whether you realized it or not, this created something deeply comforting inside them. Emotionally guarded people often expect love to feel like pressure. They expect closeness to become an obligation. They expect vulnerability to be used against them. Somewhere in their past, emotional openness came with pain. Maybe love was conditional. Maybe affection always came with criticism. Maybe honesty was answered with rejection or abandonment. Over time, they learned to protect themselves. They became careful with their emotions. They held back. They built strong emotional walls around themselves. Then you came into their life, and something about your presence quietly challenged that entire system. You did not force emotional intensity. You did not demand constant explanations. You did not punish their inconsistency. Instead, your energy communicated something very rare. I see you, and I am not trying to trap you. That kind of emotional safety touches a person very deeply. It calms the nervous system. It allows someone to soften without fear. Even if they do not understand it consciously, they still feel it. They feel calmer whenever they are around you. They think about you when they are alone. Your absence feels heavier than they expected. Your presence feels comforting in a way they cannot easily explain. This is where love often begins quietly. Not always through intensity or drama, but through recognition. The nervous system recognizes safety before the mind fully understands it. That creates something important. The closer they felt to you emotionally, the more their defenses began reacting, because what feels safe can also feel dangerous to someone who has never experienced it before. If this truly matters, then losing it becomes a real possibility. If this connection is real, then vulnerability grows stronger. You may have noticed this pattern. Just when things started feeling closer, they became quieter, more distant, and harder to understand, almost as if something inside them was pulling away. They were not always pulling away from you. Many times they were pulling away from what you made them feel. Now comes the second reason. This is the one that surprises most people. The second reason they fell in love with you is because you reflected back the parts of themselves they had rejected. There is a psychological idea that every person carries a hidden emotional side, often called the shadow. It includes feelings like vulnerability, need, softness, grief, longing, and emotional dependence. Many people spend years building identities that help them avoid these parts of themselves. They become strong, independent, logical, controlled, and emotionally detached. Not because those qualities are fake, but because they make them feel safer. Then someone appears who naturally reflects the opposite back to them. Without trying, you may have reflected emotional depth they had buried for years. Your softness may have challenged their hardness. Your honesty may have exposed the emotions they had been suppressing. Your presence may have revealed things they worked very hard to keep hidden. Something powerful happens during moments like these. They begin to feel emotionally visible, not just seen on the surface, but understood beneath it. That kind of visibility is both beautiful and frightening, because being truly seen removes the ability to hide behind old identities. It creates discomfort, even when there is no harm. You may have noticed that they reacted strongly to simple things you said. Sometimes it seemed like you understood them too well. Sometimes you noticed emotional truths they had never spoken aloud. Every time that happened, something inside them responded. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right. Being accurately seen can feel overwhelming for someone who built their sense of safety through emotional invisibility. This is also why they may have pulled away after moments of closeness. Not because the connection became weaker, but because it became deeper. You became a mirror, and mirrors reveal everything. They reveal not only strength and beauty, but also fear, loneliness, and emotional wounds. Through you, they may have realized how emotionally alone they had become, how much tenderness they truly needed, and how exhausted they were from pretending they did not need anyone. That realization can shake a person deeply, especially someone who depends on control to feel secure. Control says, stay distant, stay protected, stay unaffected. Love does the exact opposite. Love softens, love exposes, love removes illusions. This creates an inner conflict. Part of them wants to move closer. Part of them wants to run away. Part of them feels relief. Part of them feels panic. Part of them longs for emotional closeness. Another part fears losing themselves within it. This inner struggle creates mixed signals, inconsistency, hot and cold behavior, and emotional distance that feels confusing. Not because there are no feelings, but because those feelings become overwhelming. If you have been confused by this, there is something important to remember. Sometimes the person who feels the most is also the one who shows the least. Not because they do not care, but because caring feels too intense for them to handle. Now we come to the third reason. The third reason they fell in love with you is because you awakened something they believed had disappeared forever. Hope. Not fantasy, not obsession, real emotional hope. At some point, many people stop believing in deep and meaningful connection. They continue living their lives, but a part of their heart quietly gives up believing that love like this is still possible. They still speak, laugh together, and interact like everything is normal. But deep inside, something quietly closes off. They stop expecting anyone to truly understand them. They stop believing that real emotional closeness is still possible in a meaningful way. Then someone enters their life, and everything begins to shift. A conversation feels different. A person's presence feels strangely familiar. An energy feels important in a way they cannot fully explain. Slowly, something inside them starts to wake up again. They begin imagining new possibilities. They start feeling emotionally alive in ways they had almost forgotten. They begin wanting connection again, even after trying so hard to stop wanting it. But hope can feel dangerous for someone who has survived by expecting less. Hope creates emotional risk. Suddenly, silence hurts. Distance matters. Vulnerability begins to carry real consequences. This is often where emotional self-sabotage begins. Not because someone does not want love, but because they want it so deeply that the fear of losing it becomes almost unbearable. A person can truly love you and still pull away. They can miss you while choosing to stay silent. They can feel everything deeply and still resist getting closer. It may not seem logical, but emotionally it makes sense, because when love has been connected with pain in the past, the mind tries to protect itself from experiencing that same pain again. If you are thinking about one specific person, you may wonder why they have never said it directly. Why have they not expressed what seems so obvious through their actions? The answer is not always a lack of feelings. Sometimes it is because the feelings are simply too overwhelming. Speaking them out loud means surrendering. It means accepting vulnerability. It means admitting emotional dependence. It means recognizing that you matter in a way they can no longer completely control. For many people, that is the hardest step. The challenge is not feeling love. The challenge is accepting it. Because once they accept those feelings, they also accept that you have the power to affect them deeply. And that changes everything. So what you have been witnessing may not be the absence of love. It may actually be the struggle created by love itself. The attraction, the hesitation, the silence, the emotional intensity, and the confusion can all exist at the same time. When real emotional transformation begins, it often feels uncertain before it becomes clear. It starts breaking down old defenses. It challenges a person's identity. It forces the mind to adjust to emotions it never expected. That is why this connection may have felt both meaningful and confusing at the same time. It asks old survival habits that once felt necessary to step aside. That process is rarely smooth. It is usually uncomfortable, messy, and emotionally exhausting. It can make someone appear distant even while they are falling apart emotionally inside. So if you have been judging this connection only by what you can see, you may be missing everything happening beneath the surface. What makes this especially painful is that many people believe love should immediately create certainty. But psychologically, that is not always true. Sometimes, genuine love creates confusion first, because it collides with everything that remains unresolved. It pushes buried emotions back to the surface. Old emotional wounds begin speaking again. Fear of abandonment returns. Trust issues rise again. Shame appears once more. Even childhood emotional patterns quietly begin influencing adult behavior. This is why two people can feel something incredibly deep and still struggle to move closer to each other. Love is not only about chemistry. Love also brings unfinished emotional work to the surface. When that unfinished work appears, a person usually has only two choices. They can continue living unconsciously and keep running away, or they can finally face the emotional patterns that have been controlling them for years. This may be why you sensed something powerful in their eyes that their words never expressed. Eyes often reveal what language cannot. The body reveals what the ego tries to hide. The nervous system speaks long before honest words are spoken. Maybe you noticed the way they looked at you when they believed you were not paying attention. Maybe you felt how their energy changed whenever someone else came close to you. Maybe you sensed unexplained emotional tension during moments that should have felt completely casual. Those moments were not simply your imagination. Highly intuitive people often question themselves because emotionally guarded people naturally create uncertainty. But intuition does not depend only on logic. It notices patterns. It senses subtle changes. It recognizes emotional truth beneath outward behavior. If part of you continued feeling that there was something more beneath their silence, there may have been. But there is something very important you need to understand, especially if you have spent a long time waiting, analyzing every detail, hoping and hurting. Their love for you may be real. Their struggle may be real. Their fear may be real. But their healing is not your responsibility. This is where many loving people lose themselves. When you deeply feel someone else's pain, especially someone who seems emotionally blocked, your heart naturally wants to help. You want to love them enough to make them finally feel safe. You want to explain more, reassure more, wait longer, understand more, offer more patience, become gentler, become wiser, and make yourself even more available. But there is a dangerous difference between compassion and abandoning yourself. Loving another person should never require losing your own emotional center. Understanding someone's wounds should never mean accepting endless emotional inconsistency. Feeling empathy for their fear should never mean carrying the entire emotional weight of the relationship by yourself. Perhaps this is exactly what you needed to hear today. Because the real story is not only about why they fell in love with you. It is also about what this relationship has revealed about you. Why did this affect you so deeply? Why did their silence hurt so much? Why did their inconsistency pull you into such intense emotional reflection? Sometimes the people who awaken us become mirrors. Just as you reflected hidden parts of them, they may have reflected hidden parts of you. Perhaps they touched your deep desire to be fully chosen. Perhaps they awakened old abandonment wounds. Perhaps they brought your fear of receiving only partial love to the surface. Perhaps they revealed how easily emotional intensity can be mistaken for emotional availability. That realization may feel painful, but it is also powerful because awareness changes everything. Carl Jung spoke about projection, the unconscious tendency to place our own unmet emotional needs onto another person. Sometimes we believe someone else holds the key to making us feel emotionally complete. We become attached not only to who they are, but also to what they represent. They become the symbol of hope, healing, redemption, closure, or even destiny. Eventually, life asks a deeper question. What part of what you are searching for in them must first be found within yourself? That single question changes the entire relationship. Because when you stop searching for emotional completion through another person, something remarkable begins to happen. You become clearer, calmer, more grounded, and emotionally stronger. You stop begging for certainty from people who are still uncertain about themselves. You stop overanalyzing every message, every silence, every delayed reply, and every inconsistent action. You stop making yourself smaller just to help someone else feel more comfortable with emotional closeness. Ironically, this inner change often transforms the relationship more than anything else ever could. Emotionally guarded people are deeply sensitive to energy. They notice pressure, they notice pursuit, they notice emotional dependence. But they notice something else as well. They notice absence. They feel when the person who once kept reaching toward them becomes peaceful instead. They notice when someone stops chasing and finally returns to themselves. That moment can become a real turning point. Not because you are playing games and not because creating distance is manipulation, but because authenticity has a powerful attraction. When you stop abandoning yourself, everything begins to change. If they truly fell in love with you because of your emotional safety, your ability to reflect hidden truths, and your power to awaken hope within them, then the worst thing you